Welcome to the Champs App podcast, where we help players and parents demystify the world of minor hockey development and recruiting for both girls and boys. On today's episode, I talk with Dave Clausen, who is the head coach of the Utica Pioneers women's hockey team. We talk about his coaching journey in Division III women's hockey, go into detail on Utica University and the hockey program, and then Dave discusses playing D3 hockey and the recruiting process. This is a great conversation with Dave, so I hope you enjoy it. Before we get to today's amazing episode, I wanted to give you an update on Champs App. We now have over 80 college coaches with verified Champs App profiles, most of them from D1 schools, and we continue to add more coaches each week. Once you create your beautiful, free hockey resume on Champs App, you will have a personalized profile link to share with coaches and teams, or you can connect with team coaches directly within Champs App. Coaches not only learn more about you as a player, but they also get notified of your upcoming schedule, when you add videos, and where you are playing if you change teams. Just go to champs.app and click the sign up button to start or update your profile. If you want to learn more, look in the show notes for links to the list of college coaches using Champs App and videos about why and how to create your free Champs App hockey resume. I'm very excited to have on the podcast Dave Clausen, who is the first and only head coach in the history of the Utica University women's ice hockey program. Originally from Philadelphia, PA, he graduated from Hamilton College and then went on to coach at his alma mater, then Maine Maritime Academy and Bowdoin College, before coming back to New York State to start the Utica women's program 24 years ago. In addition to coaching the women's hockey team, he is also the head coach of the golf team, both men's and women's, and a hockey parent. And not just a hockey dad, but a goalie dad, which we'll be chatting about. So welcome to the podcast, Dave.
Hey, how are you, Ray?
Good. Great. Thanks for coming on. Let's start off like we do all our guests, talking about a little bit of your hockey history. I'm assuming you played hockey as a youth player, and maybe just go into how you transitioned then eventually into coaching.
Yeah, I think just like everybody in this world of hockey, you grow up just in Philadelphia at a pretty young age. Became a huge Philadelphia Flyers fan. I don't know, if that's kind of how it starts for everybody. And then I had a next door neighbor who was playing hockey for one of the local club teams where we were in Northeast Philly, and so it just started kind of, all right, if Josh is doing it, I want to do it. So I would go to the rink and started with pickup hockey, started playing some club hockey. Probably didn't play on an organized team until I was 12. Jumped in late, was kind of a big kid, pretty athletic. So in those days, right, skating for goalies wasn't as big a deal as it is these days. Or at least when you're 12, it wasn't. So they said, guess what? You're a goalie. So I did that. I loved it. It was never my primary sport as a kid, but I always loved playing. It kind of filled the winter months. I mean, back in the day when year-round sports wasn't a thing, we played, football or soccer in the fall. You played hockey or basketball in the wintertime. I think everybody played baseball or ran track. I don't think lacrosse was really an option for guys or boys when I was growing up. Although it looks like a lot of fun these days. And then in the summers it was, wiffle ball games and picnics and swimming and all that stuff. So I had a lot of fun as a kid in sports. I had a father who was a high school teacher, and he did a little bit of everything. He coached football, was very, very successful, coached a high school player that went on to win the Heisman Trophy, several football players that went to the NFL. But he also coached golf. He was involved in track and field. And then I think he ran the clock for basketball. And then he did instruction and camps and stuff in the summertime. So he was kind of always hustling and going and coaching and working with kids. And that was always fun to be a part of and be around. Always wanted to kind of be like him when I grew up. So I went to Hamilton College with the thought of doing two sports. I quickly kind of was put in a position where, hey, you're really good at this one and you're only okay at that one. So after my freshman year, you're going to be just a football player, which I was in college. But it also coincided with the start of their women's hockey program, going from club to varsity my sophomore year. And due to some goofy things with head coaches being faculty at the time, they really didn't have a women's hockey coach. And so I think they had a tennis coaching hockey. And so like as a sophomore, me and one or two other students who had been former hockey players at Hamilton ended up kind of running practices and getting the program going. Now we're talking like in the 90s, so different world from today. But that was kind of my start. And then after college, I went into coaching. I thought I was going to coach football. My first stop, the athletic director said, "Hey, guess what? You have a little hockey background. You're also going to coach our club hockey team." So I did that, and that was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it. My second stop was Bowdoin after I graduated, after Maine Maritime. Same thing, went in to be a football coach, and guess what? You're going to be the assistant women's hockey coach here. Had a lot of fun with that as well, and actually got to be part of a pretty good program there. That the class that we recruited the year I was there ended up going to 4 NCAA tournaments. And then the following year, just through contacts and questions and people reaching out and saying, "Hey, is this something you'd be interested in doing?" There's this really good job in Utica. And so I ended up here in Utica. And
so just before we get to getting into the world in Utica, correct me if I'm wrong, while you were at Hamilton College, you met somebody that seemed to end up being pretty important in your life while you were coaching. Is that correct?
Yeah. My wife was a hockey player at Hamilton as well. So that kind of worked out for us in the long run. She was a heck of a hockey player, certainly much better hockey player than I am. So anytime my daughter has success in hockey and people are like, "Wow," I'm like, well, she gets that from her mother. Her father was not the greatest player. But I obviously I love the game. It's been a passion of mine for a very, very long time. And always have been involved in it. But yeah, it's fun. My wife actually coaches my daughter's team. So it's a blast. She'll come home and complain about whatever, and I'll just complain right back at her and say, "Hey, figure it out. We got to get better." But it's good. And then, the dynamic of watching my daughter and her and their conversations about hockey and the team. And, it's a really cool, hockey house. And then we've got 2 boys and they're both going to play high school hockey this year. And they're both baseball players, but it's a sports house. My daughter plays softball in the off season. We're always going. There's always a game. So, yeah, I think, the funny thing, right, is I met my wife first time ever on a hockey rink. So,
and it sounds like the impact of your dad, doing lots of sports then has followed through to the next generation of everybody doing multiple sports, including you coaching multiple sports. You're also, a golf addict, as I understand it. So how did that happen on top of the football, on top of all the other sports that you played?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, in the summertime, it was just kind of you goof around and whatever. And golf was probably a little bit of that, going to the public course and playing. I wasn't a country club guy, but yeah, no, and then my wife as well. She was a 2-sport athlete in Hamilton, so she was able to pull it off. She was a very good soccer player. And then obviously, I think she's the all-time leader in points per game as a varsity hockey player, Hamilton women's hockey. So she was a pretty good athlete. Yeah, I mean, and it's always been something, last night, Monday Night Football, we've got the Eagles game on, the cell phones. We were at a baseball field at 7:30 under the lights watching my youngest one play baseball. So we just constantly going. But as a family, like, I couldn't imagine a better world of sports all the time for entertainment. It's so healthy. Kids love playing. Everybody's got great perspective. So, and there's not a lot of pressure. Nobody's going to make a living in sports. So we got our oldest one's trying to make a college decision right now. And 100%, he's got a sport opportunity at all of the schools that are interested, but he is, he's looking forward to figuring out the academic piece and what he wants to do with his life. So.
Perfect, Tony. We'll get back into that as we talk about choosing the Division III route. But let's talk about Utica. So Utica University, it's got about 2,800 or so, 2,500 undergraduate students, well known for criminal justice and nursing, as I understand it. Maybe just talk about the school and the academics, because it's a pretty small school.
Yeah, it's a small school, kind of right on the edge of the city of Utica, which is really a small city. It's a neat space. Town's kind of been going through a rejuvenation for years. It's really a beautiful place. Um, Obviously, it's right down the road from where I went to college. My wife and I kind of fell in love with this area, so it was kind of neat to be able to get back here. And she works up on the hill again at Hamilton, and obviously me at Utica. So yeah, I mean we're really happy in this area. The school, it's a wonderful small private college. Founded by Syracuse in 1946. I think we split off in the early 90s. Became our own small private school. So there's kind of a history there that's really cool of, World War II veterans kind of being like our first wave of students, and some of that history. And then late 90s, after we split off, there was kind of a start of growing the athletic department as a small private D3. So we added hockey, we added football, we added lacrosse, field hockey. It's been an incredible growth. I think we're at 26 sports now as an institution. Academically, I think we spend a lot of time. I think the administration here, they do a fantastic job of really looking at majors and academic programs that put student athletes or students just in a great spot upon graduation. They're either employable or have a path. So our criminal justice, cybersecurity, economic crime investigation programs are amazing. I mean, the FBI recruits on our campus, and our physical therapy and OT programs have been outstanding for years. There's a 6-year doctorate program in PT here, which we've had some students on our program go through. It's certainly a challenging academic program. We've had kids pick that over Ivy League options. So it's been pretty good to us. And then it's been really good to those kids once they've graduated. Nursing is a really strong major here. We've got a great nursing program, nursing lab on campus, and actually in a week or two, they're opening up a brand new teaching hospital right across the street from the Utica University Nexus Center. So there's some great opportunity there for kids that are on that path. But we've got liberal arts, we've got graduate programs. I want to say, and I'm going to ballpark it because I don't know the exact number, but I think we're close to like 50 majors or academic programs that kids can study. So there's a lot of opportunity here, academically, and then obviously with all of the sports, athletically, I think it's like 40% of the student body comes in as athletes here. So
that's what that leads me perfectly into my next question. With about 40% of your student body also being athletes, is that part of the strategy for the school, is to use sports as a way to attract high-end, high achievers to the school?
Yeah, I think again, that was Todd Hutton was our president in the 90s when we split off from Syracuse, and I want to say enrollment was maybe 1,400 at the time, give or take. I'm going back a few years. But one of his ideas for the growth of the college to kind of make us be able to stand on our own 2 feet and get us up to the 18 and then 2,000, about 2,200 undergrads was just, to add some athletic programs to give not only the campus, reason for students to come here with sports, but also to give it, a little bit of a campus life, right? So having football gives us something to do on Saturdays in the fall, right? There's tailgating on campus. It's a fun environment. Hockey down here at the Adirondack Bank Center and the Utica University Nexus Center. I mean, our men for a number of years were selling out every single game, packed houses to capacity. Obviously, the AHL saw what was going on there. We're like, hey, we should throw a team in that building, and they still get huge crowds. I mean, I think that we still sell out. And they're averaging, I think it's like 2,500 to 3,000 fans at every game, which is at a student. You have more fans at your games than you have undergraduate students. It's a really, really cool environment. Not just for the hockey players to play in that, but the student athletes to have something to go to. You wear your school sweatshirt or whatever, you're cheering for the home team. It's neat, and then it's part of the community, right? So you have people who live in Utica that are Utica hockey fans, Utica football fans, Utica athletic fans, which is really cool, right? Like you go around town and our players are like, yeah, I'm at Hannaford's getting, groceries, and people are like, are you so and so from the Utica women's hockey team. So it's a kind of a neat environment. It definitely has a big school athletic feel here, in a smaller town. You know, but it's also, you know, a great place academically, obviously, with the balance of a wonderful sports environment and a wonderful academic environment.
All right. So last non-hockey question. So how did you end up being the golf coach on top of the women's ice hockey coach?
Yeah, like I think my third year or something here, like they were doing second duties and they gave me golf. And so I coached just our men's golf team for a handful of years. We did okay. It was nothing special. And then we had another, I think it's a faculty member really wanted it, and I was happy to not have the extra responsibility. And then that faculty member stepped away, I want to say like 7-8 years ago. And the athletic director asked if we would take it back and add women's. So I'm doing it along with our soccer coach. Kind of, we work together on it. I'll do the heavy lifting in the fall, and he does the heavy lifting in the spring because it's a split season. But yeah, so it's just been a lot of fun, right? Like it's neat. You go from hockey where I'm not gonna lie, put a little bit of pressure on ourselves to be successful, to the golf world where, sometimes hey, we just got to finish all 18 holes today, right? Like that's the goal. But we've won a couple league championships here. Like, I think we won 2000, 2001. We were Empire 8 champions in men's golf. Our women won a tournament yesterday, so which was nice. It was the first one in a couple years. But I'm not going to sit here and say I'm this great golf coach. I know a little bit about it. I've played it. I was a low handicapper at one point in time, but kids and youth sports have eaten up some of my weekend golf time. So so I haven't played much recently, and certainly wouldn't declare myself much of a golfer at this point. But it's just a lot of fun. It gets me out. So yesterday, sit on a golf course in a golf cart, cheering on the guys and the girls out there on the course. But and that'll wrap up. The fall wraps up usually the second weekend in October, and then we go right into hockey on Monday. And then when hockey's over, wait for the ice to melt, and we start playing golf. So.
Perfect. So now let's talk about the some of the hockey facilities for the hockey programs. So you mentioned the Utica University Nexus Center. So sounds like it's pretty brand new. And there's a big event coming up next spring at the location. Maybe just talk about some of the facilities and how they're going to be used.
Yeah. So for years we played in the Adirondack Bank Center, formerly known as the Utica Memorial Auditorium. Which was the home of the Utica Devils in the 90s. I think it was built for the Clinton Comets, like in the 60s, or like right around 1960, the Mohawk Valley Stars. So there's been pro hockey here in this town for a long time. That was kind of what people latched onto. It actually left pro hockey kind of right as we started hockey here with the college. So we kind of moved into that building and became the hockey attraction, so to speak, in Utica, which was great. Obviously the AHL's back, but it's a 4,000 seat arena, the Adirondack Bank Center. It's state of the art with video boards, everything you could possibly imagine. Super exciting building to play in. Certainly has a pro hockey feel when you're in there. I know it's regularly ranked like worldwide as one of the best spectator arenas in the world. Obviously, there's not a bad, it's 4,000 seats and there's not a bad one. Like, they are like on top of the ice surface. It's a great building. Concerts and everything. I think, I know I was at a Toby Keith concert there like 2 summers ago. So they get some pretty good, and Dirk Bentley a few years back. So they get some good concerts in there as well, in the summertime. And then kind of since COVID, it was kind of an ongoing thing, but they built an extension off of that with 3 additional sheets. One of the ones is the one you can kind of see right behind you right now, which is our home ice for the women now. So our women moved in November. We started playing some games over there. We moved full time into the Nexus Center, the Utica University Nexus Center, in January, and it's got a gorgeous facility for our players. We've got offices and changing rooms for our coaches, training rooms, a huge players lounge, a dry room, a locker room, all for our kids in here. They love it. And, it's a nice rink. And again, we started playing here in November. I think we're still undefeated here in this building, which is neat, to be able to kind of have that going. Certainly no pressure on us. I think our schedule out of the gate's pretty tough with our opening tournament this year. keep that going. But yeah, it's an amazing facility, 2,000 seats, again, video boards, some luxury suites. It's a nice spot to play your home games, and then to be one of the few teams that kind of has a dedicated women's rink. So our men and the AHL team will play right in the Adirondack Bank Center, all connected, right? You can walk right back and forth between the two. And then our women kind of have this facility themselves. So we get to be the Friday night game at 7:00 every week, and Saturday at 2. So it's kind of like the prime time for hockey, and we get to play. We never have to work around anyone else's schedule or bump other people from the schedule for us. So it's a really, really amazing situation for our players.
And the next spring, you're going to be hosting a major women's event. You want to share what's going on there?
Yeah, in April, we've got the Women's Worlds are coming. So that'll be exciting. 10 best national team programs from around the world here, US, Canada, etc. It's it's going to be exciting. I think it's 10 days. I know it's 31 games in total. It starts on a Friday and ends on a Sunday. But with a full week in between, it'll be fun. I mean, it's just an opportunity, one, to showcase our facility and have, the best coaches in the country, here, right? Every major Division I program will have their staffs here. Every international program will be here. It's a chance to kind of Utica to put its best foot forward and show off what we have for the world. And to kind of host that is exciting. I mean, it's not every day you get to have one national team or one national team game in your barn, but to have the whole world's here it's going to be fantastic.
That's awesome. All right. So talking about having the most successful women come and play for you, let's talk about the success of your team. So you've made the playoffs, I believe, 21 out of 22 seasons. So what's been the key to having such a consistently, successful program over the years?
Yeah, I think Utica University sells itself. So we've been able to kind of attract students, and just from the academic programs and then the athletic opportunity. We've been able to kind of start to sell the building that we're in right now. A few years back, so kind of like, I want to say like our senior class maybe was the first class that was hearing about it during the recruiting process. That created a lot of excitement. And you can kind of see, we've always been a pretty successful program, certainly competitive, with the best teams in the country. But I think this year, the last couple of years, we've been 20+ win seasons with the program and nationally ranked. I think that has a lot to do with what we have, and having a great culture. Kids come in, they see what's here. So we've been able to recruit some great athletes, and kind of put them out there and let them go and do their thing. And they've been representing Utica University really well.
And you were, as you can see over your shoulder, you won the UCH the Coach of the Year last season. How have you been able to continue to become a better coach after 20+ years?
I think you have to grow every day in life. I mean, I think that's a general thing, right? I learn every day. Being in this building has been amazing. I certainly kind of laugh at times. The coach that I was 20 years ago, right? That trying to make it up as you go along, figure it out, but you kind of learn and you grow. I've certainly had the opportunity to be influenced by some pretty great coaches that have been here in the building. Watching what Kevin Dineen does right now with the Utica Comets, and Trent Cull before him, who's now in the NHL, and being able to, Travis Green used to sit in my office, I think, almost as much as I did when he was here, and pick his brain and talk hockey. He was an absolute, rink rat hockey junkie, wanted to be successful, no stone unturned in development. So,
and just for folks to know that Travis was the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks for a period of time. Yeah.
And I think prior to that, obviously, you're picking brains with Gary Heenan, who's very, very successful with our men's program here, and was a classmate of mine at Hamilton. So I think we just have a really neat hockey community here. The building's run by a former NHLer in Rabesh, who we talked goaltending quite a bit over the years, and so I think there's a lot here, a lot of opportunity in our rink just to develop. And obviously, I think, with age comes a little bit of wisdom. You maybe lose a little bit of your energy level, right? I'm a little less intense, I think, now than I once was, but I think it's in a good way. And, I enjoy the players that we have. I enjoy the teaching. I enjoy watching them grow over 4 years. I always laugh at our freshmen a little bit and their desire to get really, really good in 2 weeks. And trying to explain that, hey, this is the process. You're not going to be where our seniors are in 2 weeks. It takes you time to get there. And we've always been kind of upperclassmen driven program here, with our older players are better than our younger players. And that's just, I think, a tribute to the development that they get in our program here.
Gotcha. And so now I don't want to pick at a scab, but last year you did really well, but Nazareth College seemed to be your nemesis. And unfortunately, in your last few games, you lost to them 3 times in overtime, all of them in overtime. So I'm wondering what you're going to do this year so that you're going to come up on top in those overtime games against in those playoff games against the top teams.
Yeah, I think that I think if you had a chance to watch those 3 games last year, you would say, wow, these could go any way type games between us, 2 really strong programs. I know that we lost twice in overtime on power play goals, which was tough, and then once in a shootout. And like I say, they're great programs, great teams. We're kind of, trending, I think, in the right direction as a program. We've got a lot of returners this year. So, if things hold to form, we're getting better. Maybe this is our year. The other thing that'll be nice is that we'll get to play them in that rink over your shoulder this year a couple of times, where last year we had to go out and play them all 3 of those games. So the way our schedules work, you play everybody twice, but it's either home or away. You don't get a shot at everybody at home. And last year we didn't get a shot at them here in our building. This year we do, which will be nice. Our league is deeper, though, than just Nazareth and Utica. I think, we've got some really, really good programs. Manhattanville is always a power. I think that Dave LaBath at Wilkes is doing a great job. I think, Mike O'Grady and Chatham has kind of risen from a very, very long tenure of a floundering program to they're strong, and they could beat anybody on any day. And so it's an exciting league that we're in right now, the UCHC. I think it's a league that if you're a strong program, you want to be in right now. I know a little bit. I'm not a big part of it, but I know from an administrative standpoint, we've got applicants to the league right now, teams that want to get in here that are good, that make the league better, which is an exciting thing for our future. We just added on the men's side a couple, and so I think they're going to continue to look and see what's out there. But yeah, it's just got to keep getting better. And I think everybody else is getting better. Women's hockey on the whole is getting better. The lopsided games become fewer and fewer and fewer, which is a good thing. I think for a long time, people were able to recruit just on their success, and that meant you had some really strong programs. But right now, I think there's a lot of good facilities, a lot of good schools, and a lot of good players, and a lot of opportunity for kids to have a lot of fun at the next level, the collegiate level, playing hockey in a really competitive environment.
Gotcha. Okay, so now let's transition a little bit into the recruiting side of things. So if you're a player or a student athlete, why would you choose Division III?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one that not just as a coach I'm dealing with, but as a parent, I'm having those conversations with my own children. So, and not just in hockey, right? My oldest son is a baseball player. He's a fantastic pitcher, a really good ball player. And he's had Division I conversations, Division II conversations. But he's also had some injuries along the way and some struggles. So he's probably going to pick a Division III school. I know he's got a couple in the mix. He's got a couple Division IIs he's still considering, but I think he's excited about the opportunity to be able to compete right away and play, and also have that balance of, hey, I can really focus on academics, and he wants to be an engineer. So to be able to do that and be able to prioritize that as opposed to the athletics and having to, continue to earn your scholarship every day, just it's attracted to him. And I think that in hockey, the same thing can fall in. There's also only 44 Division I programs out there. It's highly competitive to get in the door there. It's highly competitive once you get there. And certainly the best players in the world, like, they're going to end up there. But I think when you look, like, you look over the last 5-10 years, every year you're going to see some bottom half Division III programs have been playing bottom half Division I programs playing some top half Division III programs, and be surprised to see that some of those Division III programs are not only winning, but winning pretty big. And that's just because some kids are like, hey, I could go and play at this Division I program, or I could go and play at this Division III program and compete for a league championship, compete for a national championship, be able to prioritize that academics instead of having to play 34 games. We play 25 games. Being able to have an extra 3 or 4 weeks of just being a college student at the beginning of the year. I think those are some really attractive things about Division III is perspective. Being the person I am, loving sports, having the opportunity in September to watch some of the college football games, right? And being part of that environment on a Saturday afternoon, as opposed to having to be at the rink because you're playing. It just can create a better experience. At the same time, like, competitive hockey and competitive football, and it's competitive baseball, wherever you are, whatever the sport may be, lacrosse. Sometimes the opportunity, you may be a great 2-sport athlete to do that at Division III. At the end of the day, I think a lot of people put a lot of time and effort into a number, right? D1, D3, which is just that. It's just it's a number, and it doesn't mean a ton when you're done. It doesn't mean a ton. It's great for clicks and Instagram when you can put up that I committed to wherever. But at the end, you got to deal with that decision for 4 years. Don't make a decision because of an Instagram post opportunity. Make a decision because it's what's best for you. It's what you want to do. It's going to be a good 4-year experience, and it's going to set you up for life. Because even the best players, and I have a story, and it's talking to a friend of mine who was playing the NHL for 16 years, and he was coaching at the time, and pitching and complaining a little bit about coaching at that point. And I was like, well, why are you doing it? Why wouldn't you just retire and go have fun? And he's like, played 16 years in the NHL, and I made $14 million, and the government took 7 of it, and I spent 3.5 of it, and what's left is great. And my wife and I and our kids, we could live in a ranch house somewhere in the Midwest and try not to spend much money, but there wouldn't be much for vacations and luxuries and whatnot if I didn't work. So it doesn't matter, right? There's a professional women's hockey league. Nobody's going to make enough money doing that to retire when their playing careers are over and not have to keep working. So go to college, and think about what you're going to do with the rest of your life. That's got to be a focus. I don't care whether you're the best athlete on your team or not. That's not going to pay the bills. It's not going to make your life great when you're 30 and 40 years old. What's going to make your life great is being prepared for the world after your 4 years of college.
Nice. I like that holistic answer. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So just for the education of our audience, how is the D3 recruiting cycle different than the D1 recruiting cycle? And when do you start approaching players? What's the timeline, working backwards from, when they actually start at school?
Yeah, I think this is a good conversation piece. And I'm going to start off by maybe throwing you a little bit of a curveball. That I don't think there's one set recruiting timeline for anybody. You look at all the Division I's, yes, they all have the June 15th opening date, but different schools are committing kids in different windows, right? There's a little bit of pecking order at the Division I level, right? Like your top couple of teams, your top scholarship teams, they're getting their kids committed earlier, and and I think the process is still taking a little bit of time with those guys. You don't hear of a lot of commitments anymore before Labor Day. There are a few, but it's just not a ton. So September's a big commitment window at the Division I level, and September really through February of junior years is a big window there. For us, we are really trying to start recruiting juniors in January. That's kind of our window. I know from experience with my own child that some Division threes are starting a little bit earlier, but with Division ones, that's kind of the window is, the June 15th, and I think it really runs through February and March, of what our kids' junior years. That is where all the heavy lifting gets done. There are still kids, and you're still hearing about kids committing, through the spring and into the fall. It's not as much. I think it'll change with the 25 class, because I think coaches right now, if they have a need late, instead of saying, all right, well, we'll commit a senior in high school for next year, they're just kind of holding out and waiting to see what's in the transfer portal to see if they can fill that need that way. And then I think because of that, and kids not getting even though they're not getting as much conversations or as much traction with Division I schools by spring of their junior year, they're a little bit more excited to make moves in Division III. And I think that kind of is the window where Division IIIs kind of run January, February of your junior year, right through until, I think, again, a lot of the commitments are done by, mid-November, December 1 of junior years, with a lot of them coming through the summer and early fall of senior year. And then again, the process will continue and trickle out into the spring. I think the biggest thing is with recruits, and my conversation with my kids and everybody else's kids, is like, don't put yourself on a clock if you don't have to. Enjoy the process. Like, you're shopping, right? No need to buy the first thing you see. It's all going to work out. That's, I think, everybody's fear, is if I don't commit today, like my friend on my team is already committed and I'm not committed, and oh no, what's wrong with me? Their process is their process, and your process is your process. Take your time. You're picking the right school for you. It's not a competition. This is, and I think that people get lost in that as well. It's about finding the right fit. Everybody has a passion. Everybody's got an academic program. You got to find the right fit, take your time, and prioritize the school piece, not the athletic piece.
Yeah, so actually related to that, when we had Chris Baudo, the head coach of Nazareth, on the podcast, episode 60, he mentioned that when a player decides they're going to go Division III, the number one thing they look for is the school, like the academics. What is it that they're going to study? And then figuring out, do they have a hockey team, kind of a thing. What's your perspective on that? Of, once the decision has been made by the student athlete that they're going to go D3, how it's different versus D1 in terms of their decision making?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big differences would be academically. You want to make sure that's the right fit. I think a lot of kids, especially like hockey kids, your commitment level in hockey is pretty high. So a lot of kids will say, this is what I want to study, but then they narrow down their schools based on, schools that have what they want academically and an opportunity to play hockey. And then that kind of gives you a window of schools to look at, or this is the academic type of school I want, right? I want liberal arts, or I want whatever it may be, right? Comprehensive or whatever. So that's the process. I think ultimately it's applying, it's depositing. In Division I, there's commitment letters and scholarship conversations. Division III, you're filling out FAFSA and looking at merit scholarships, which come from your application. And making financial decisions that way. We have celebratory signing letters in Division III, which are great and whatnot, but they're not really commitment letters, because you can change your mind afterwards without any athletic repercussions, which is certainly I'm not in favor of the academic or athletic repercussions. I think kids should be able to pick the schools they want to go to, and I know just a portal conversation, which is for, we can have that one if you want, but I think the power should be with the student athlete, not with the coaches. If the program's not the right program, should go somewhere else where you're going to be happy. You get 4 years to play. I got to do this forever. We should both be happy,
Yeah.
And we haven't had a ton of kids leave. We've had a ton come in. It is what it is. I think you gotta be honest in what you sell. But anyway, so the process, kind of getting back to your question, is Division III is a little different in that, we don't have the commitment letters. You gotta apply and figure out financial aid, and that can be a factor, and what's the right fit. And there's a lot
How does
of pieces.
financial aid work? How does financial aid work?
I mean, schools, obviously, most schools, I mean, obviously you have some state schools where they might not have need-based financial aid. This is the price. You can qualify for merit aid. You have private schools where, for the most part, need-based financial aid and merit scholarships kind of go together and give you a financial aid package and end up with a cost of attendance. But you'll fill out FAFSA, and FAFSA will provide all the private schools you're looking at. You ask them to, with some financial information on you. Biggest piece is kind of it's called estimated family contribution. That number kind of tells the schools, hey, this family can afford this amount. You've got to charge them at least that much. You can't go under. And then schools will do what they do, and everybody has a different formula or process for meeting need, financial aid need. And that's a part of the process, I think, for kids, is to figure out what schools are going to give them, the best package. Again, people talk a little bit with colleges nowadays about return on investment, which I think is an important conversation. Am I going to get out of my 4 years value for what I'm paying to go to school? And that's, I think that's a new modern thing, and I think it's an important thing. College is expensive. You got to go with a purpose. So, I mean, it's definitely an interesting kind of conversation there as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a big piece, right? Financially, you've got a kid, right? It's going to be a big piece, right?
We'll see where it all ends up. So, okay. So, last couple of questions. So, in order to come to Utica, they need to get an offer. So, if they want to play hockey there. So, what is it that you look for when you're recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, for us, certainly we look at character. That's a big piece for us. We look at two big athletic pieces for us is we want kids who can skate and have some hockey IQ. And if we feel like if you have those two pieces, you're going to fit in really well here. And then, it's Division III, so not everybody's going to be perfect. We're kind of, what can we swap in and out for talents and pieces, so occasionally we'll have a kid who's maybe not the greatest skater, but she's a goal scorer or has some great touch around the net, but has the IQ piece, right? Or, maybe we have a kid who's a Division I skill set, but doesn't have the IQ. So can we work with that? Yeah, but not the whole team full of kids that don't have a lot of IQ. So it's a process, and then we're trying to fit some pieces in. Like, this is what we're losing. This is what we need to get. I think for us, we kind of try to recruit at a level where we know we're going to have to compete in recruiting with other schools that are at a high level. So, we know that not every kid we go after we're gonna get, and so that creates a little bit of a tricky piece, because we're always recruiting a couple more kids than we need, knowing that it's not always going to work out. For us, we have been, knock on wood, pretty successful in retaining our student athletes here. I know at some places, hey, we bring in 10 kids every year because we know they're not all going to make it. So those are all factors people have to look at. What's your retention? What do you expect to bring back from this year's team, and what are you going to bring in? It's kind of a juggling act, going to be honest with you, for everyone in Division III. I think Division I is a little easier. They really work on their spots and their scholarships, and we got this much money this year, so that's all we can give out, and put people a little bit more on clocks, I think, than some of the Division IIIs. Although I think some Division IIIs are working an offer and a time window situation, which never used to be the case, and boggles my mind as a dad a little bit. But I understand it. I get it. I get what people are trying to do.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the dad piece just for one last question related to it, which is more stressful, coaching a women's hockey team or being a goalie parent?
Oh, goalie dad for sure. I love talking about my kids. I love talking about their youth sports. So this could be a 3-hour podcast at this point. I definitely, with my daughter, I try to keep a distance from her and her career just because it's hers, it's not mine, and I like being her dad, not her hockey coach. But yeah, I mean, like, I much prefer, like, I went to her game on Sunday against your daughter, and it's hard, it's stressful watching, right? I much prefer, like, when I have a conflict and I cannot watch, and then I'm able to go back and watch it on Live Barn, knowing what the score is going to be, so I'm mentally prepared. Because definitely, like, you want, everybody cheers for their kids. You want success. I mean, I cheer for my favorite pro sports teams, my favorite college teams. But you want it so bad for your kids, that you can taste it. And it definitely gets stressful when, they're not at their best, and they want it, or, um, you know, but, listen, like, without question, I would rather be coaching and distracted by the coaching and involved in the outcome and the process than just a helpless bystander, um, which is what you are when it's your kids on the ice, especially the goalies, right? Because they never them that's the successful one. It's always, no matter how many saves they make, if they don't win, I should have made one more. It's tough.
Yeah, the number of goalie parents who express their stress to me, or I seen it during the games. It's just, I couldn't. That's something that's beyond what I'd be able to handle. All right, last question. What advice do you have for student athletes as they go through the recruiting process and they're exploring both D3 and D1 opportunities?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is don't, and I mentioned it earlier, is don't get wrapped up in the click info. Don't get wrapped up in other people's processes. Trust yourself. What is it that I want? Really think about what it would be like to be in different places. Do you want the Division I pressures? Do you want the Division III lifestyle? Not that the hockey is not high pressure, not that it's not competitive, but there's differences. What do you want your college experience to be like? What do you want your life experience to be like after college? Do your own search, do your own process. Don't be influenced by where your friends are going to school. Don't be influenced by, the level of play, or where kids that are from your program have been committing in the past. Use your coaches to help you. Use your guidance counselors, use your parents. But it's your process, and you have to take ownership for it yourself. You got to do your own emails. Don't have mom write your emails to your coaches for you. Just really, like I said, trust the process, but take some ownership for that, because you're really trying to figure out what is in your best interest of what are the options that are out there for you. Not what, you hear the horror stories of club coaches saying, hey, you got to go take this walk-on spot at this school. That's the best opportunity for you at Division I, where you're going to be the 25th kid on a roster, because they want to be able to say, we sent so many kids Division I last year, as opposed to, what might be the best spot for you, which might be a really good academic school in Division III, where you're going to have a lot of success. What's best for me, not what looks best on paper, not what looks best on Instagram. What's going to look best for me when I'm 23 years old and dealing with the real world, and I'm now no longer an athlete, right? What sets me up. So.
Perfect. All right, Dave, I want to thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge, talking about your experiences as a coach, and 20 plus years at Utica, and then obviously going into more detail about the women's program, everything that's coming up with the World Championship. And obviously, thank you for sharing all your insights about recruiting, and also being a hockey parent. So thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
I really want to thank Dave for coming on the podcast. It was great to learn about his multi-sport coaching career and having him share his perspective on how to manage your own recruiting journey. You can connect with him on the team website or his Champs app profile. Links to both are in the show notes.